I found his name scratched out of every gospel copy older than the 4th century. Not damaged, not faded, scratched out. On purpose. Every single time. 11 years of doing this job, and parchment has never fought back before. This did. 12 apostles. Everyone knows the 12, but 3 of the oldest fragments I've ever touched. 3, from 3 countries, 3 different hands, all had a 13th name, written first, then gouged out with something sharp enough to tear straight through the page. I should have logged it and moved on. That's the job. I didn't move on. And that's the part I keep coming back to, because nobody made me look closer. I chose to. I pulled everything I could get access to. 11 of the fragments had the exact same gap, a name torn out right after, and the 12th was Judas, who betrayed him. Something was supposed to come next. A 13th line. One fragment still had 4 letters left in the corner. Not a name I recognized. Not Aramaic. Not Greek. Older than both. I picked it up to photograph it, and it was warm. Not room temperature warm. Warm like something that had just been set down. I logged the pull like I always do. Archive protocol, standard form. What I didn't know was that fragment had a flag on it. A decades-old one, tied to a name I hadn't clocked yet. Father Anselm's. He'd cataloged it himself, 30 years back, and never taken the alert off. He called me an hour after I filed the form. I hadn't told a soul. I went to see him 3 days later. He wouldn't let me pass the door. Some things were removed because they were wrong, he said. Not false, wrong. There's a difference. What's the difference? He looked at me for a long time before he answered, false things can't hurt you. Then he said something I didn't understand until it was too late to matter. The name wasn't erased to hide a person. It was erased to close a door. And every time someone opens it again, reads the name aloud, writes it, says it into a room, the door opens a little further. I laughed at a priest, in his own doorway. He didn't laugh back. He glanced past me at the street and asked if I'd told anyone else what I'd found. Not if I'd been followed, if I'd talked. I said no. He said, keep it that way, and shut the door. My nephew Theo was staying with me that weekend. His mom had a work trip, and he'd fallen asleep on the couch by 9, one arm hanging off the edge. I sat at the kitchen table with the 4 letters and did what I do for a living. I filled in the gaps. I compared the letters to older ones I knew, tried combinations until one felt right in the mouth, the way real words do. By midnight I had a name. I said it out loud, just to hear if it sounded right. Nothing happened. No flicker, no cold spot, nothing you'd put in a movie. I didn't notice Theo had shifted on the couch, eyes still shut, until I turned off the kitchen light and heard him mumble something into the cushion. 4 syllables. I told myself I was hearing my own voice echo in my head. I went to bed almost disappointed. I woke up 11 hours later with dirt packed under my fingernails I couldn't explain, and a text from a number I didn't have saved. One word, don't. I went to check on Theo. His door, which he always leaves open because he's scared of the dark, was shut. I told myself it was a prank. I almost believed it, until I asked Theo about the shut door, and he said he didn't remember closing it. But he did remember a dream. Someone teaching him a word. He couldn't repeat it for me. He tried 3 times, and each time it slid out of his mouth wrong, like his tongue wouldn't hold the shape of it. I went back to the fragments anyway. There was a section I'd been skipping. Some instinct kept steering me around the middle of the 2nd page. That night, I stopped avoiding it. It wasn't a name the way the other 12 were names. It was a role. A watcher who stood outside the circle. Present at everything. Written down nowhere. The church hadn't erased someone who'd done something wrong. They'd erased someone who'd seen something they weren't allowed to record, and who had never actually left. Never left the story. That phrase wouldn't get out of my head. 3:14 a.m., my study door, which locks from the inside, was standing open, dirt on the floor, the same dirt from under my nails. And down the hall, Theo's light was on, even though I knew for a fact I'd switched it off myself before bed. I didn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen with every light in the house on, telling myself restoration work doesn't come with a haunted house clause. I kept hearing something down the hall. Not footsteps. Slower than that. Like it already knew exactly where it needed to be and had no reason to hurry. I called Anselm. No answer. I drove to the church at 6 in the morning and let myself in through the side door the restoration crew always uses for early deliveries. I still had a key from a job 2 years back. His office light was already on. On his desk, open, was a second copy of the fragment I'd been working from. His copy, decades old, in his own handwriting in the margins, and a logbook next to it with 30 years of dated entries, all in the same hand. Checked, still shut. Every entry going back decades, until the most recent one 3 days ago, which just said, "She pulled it, flag tripped, starting again." His notes explained what he'd never said out loud. The door doesn't open because a name is evil. It opens because a name, reconstructed from nothing, not read off a page, rebuilt, letter by a living person, works like a hook. It recognizes the one who pulled it back into the world, and it isn't tied to a place. It's tied to her. Wherever she is, that's where the door is. In the margin, underlined twice. The only way to shut it is to unmake it the way it was made. Spoken forward to open, so burned while spoken backward to close. Wherever she finishes it, that's where it closes. I heard footsteps behind me in the empty office. I turned around. Nobody was there, but the door I'd walked through was closed, and I hadn't closed it. On his desk, my phone buzzed. A text from Anselm's number, sent from somewhere I couldn't see him. Go home, now. I drove home, going 80 and a 30. Theo was still asleep on the couch, untouched, and for 1 second, I let myself believe I'd overreacted. Then I saw the kitchen. My notes, every reconstruction, every photograph I'd printed, were spread across the table in a shape I hadn't left them in, facing the same direction, toward the hallway. I picked up the fragment with the 4 original letters. It was warm again, the same warmth from the first day, except now it felt less like a coincidence and more like a countdown. I started saying the letters backward, the way Anselm's notes said to, and struck a match. That's when I saw it. Not a shadow, not a shape in the corner of my eye. It was standing at the end of the hallway, between me and Theo, tall in a way that didn't match the ceiling height, and it did not have a face, so much as a place where a face should have gone, and hadn't. It took 1 step toward the couch. I said the last letter, and dropped the burning page into the sink. It didn't vanish in a flash of light. It just stopped being there, between one blink and the next, the way a word disappears the moment you stop being able to remember how it's spelled. The house went silent, not peaceful. The silence a room has right after something that was standing in it isn't standing there anymore. I checked on Theo. He was fine, still asleep, still breathing normal. My phone buzzed once more. Anselm again. It's shut. For now. I'm done watching it. That's yours now. Nothing after that. He never picked up when I called back, and the archive quietly reassigned his old office 2 weeks later. Nobody would tell me where he went. I still work in restoration. I still handle fragments older than most countries. But I've learned the difference Anselm meant. Some things in those old texts were removed because they were false. Ignore those. They can't hurt you. Some things were removed because they were true enough to open a door, and the people who wrote our history knew some doors are supposed to stay shut, not because of what's on the other side, but because of what's standing there, waiting for someone curious enough and good enough at their job to finish saying the name. I destroyed every reconstruction I had, scratched the name out of my own photos, pixel by pixel, the same way the monks did it 13 centuries ago. If you ever find 4 letters where a name should be, and you're tempted to fill in the rest, don't finish it. Some blanks were left blank on purpose. Theo stayed with me 2 more weekends after that. Everything's been normal, mostly, except twice now, I've heard him talking in his sleep. The same 4 syllables he couldn't repeat to me that morning, except now they come out clean. Every letter. Perfect. I haven't told him he's saying it right.